There are a lot of spells that you can obtain in Fear and Hunger, some definitely being a lot more useful than others. So I'm going to discuss what I think are the most valuable spells to obtain in the game. Most of what I list are used in combat, although one or two you can use outside combat. A few of them do require more affinity with certain gods, so will be harder to obtain than others. I'm just going to list the ones that are best overall in the game. First one, Loving Whispers. Now you'll need one affinity with Sylvians, so it's a very easy spell to acquire in the game. You don't need to know anything prior to learning Loving Whispers. And what the spell does is heal one party member around 60 to 90 body each time you use the spell. It does cost 30 mind to use it, however, but it's a very good spell to acquire, and that's why I listed it as the first spell. Now you can obtain the next one, which is Healing Whispers, and that's like an all party heal, so it will heal all of your party members, but it heals far less than the Loving Whispers, so it heals around 20 to 40 body each time. Next one is Black Orb. Black Orb is more harder to obtain than Loving Whispers, as you'll need 3 affinity with Grogaroth. It costs 20 mind to use, it does around 200 damage and it hits 3 times. So you're looking at around 600 damage each time. It's a very, very good spell to obtain in Fear and Hunger. Now next one, and we're going down the list, it's even more harder to obtain this one. It's Locust Swarm. The reason it's hard to obtain is that you need 2 affinity with the God of Depths. And unless you start out with Enki and choose a specific selection in his intro play, it's really hard to obtain affinity with that god in Fear and Hunger. Nevertheless, it's a good spell to have in the game. Locust Swarm can stun an enemy. That potentially gives you 2 extra attacks on the enemy. And if you have that affinity with the God of Depths, you should definitely obtain this spell. Finally, the Combustion spell. Now I've done a guide about how to obtain the Combustion spell. It's a little bit more complex than others, but it's actually easier to obtain. So you'll need to get the maps from Isaiah and then head into Nosramus's chamber. You can go open the chest and pick up the Combustion spell. Once you learn the spell and use it on enemies, the spell will hit around 300 to 400, and it's got a 60% chance to apply burning to the enemy. The best part of the Combustion spell though is that it costs 0 mind to use. Use it in place of a weapon. For instance, if your weapon isn't dealing that amount of damage, perhaps you haven't got Blue Sin or Miasma yet, but mainly use it for the burning status effect, because that does around 10% of the enemy's HP. And because of the way the enemy's HP is calculated in Fear and Hunger, it takes off the maximum amount of its HP. For instance, the enemy may only have 1200 HP, but behind the scenes its max HP is 4000. When you apply the burning status effect to it, it takes off 400 each time. So that makes Combustion a really good spell to obtain. Now, while they are, in my opinion, the best to obtain in the game, there's also a few honourable mentions that I'd like to talk about. And the first one is Blood Portal. It's a very simple spell to get, and you'll only need 1 affinity with Olmer, and it costs 0 mind to use. So you can put the Blood Portal down on ritual circles, and then it allows you to travel to wherever you put your Blood Portal. Next one is Transmutation. And again, I've done a guide about this, so I won't go too much into it right now, but effectively you can use it to get an unlimited amount of food and mind for your characters. You'll need to first buy the maps from Isaiah to learn this spell, but incredibly useful in the game. And lastly is Pheromones. Now Pheromones is used in combat and it acts like a taunt, so you apply it to any character. It's probably better to apply it to your other characters, not your main one. And then when you apply it to them, the enemy just attacks them only. So then basically you just use guard on that character and then you can focus attacking with your other characters. That's all for the most valuable spells in Fear and Hunger. I've discussed them all on the basis that you're obtaining them through affinity with the gods and not through using an empty scroll. All of these can still be obtained if you use an empty scroll, so do bear that in mind. Of course, when it comes to which one you should choose, then the decision is yours. Each one of these has its own strengths, and I think all of them prove to be really useful to your characters in the game. And that's all, so I'll leave that here.